pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to just once again thank everybody for their hard work. Thank you for our city clerk and city manager and community development and police chief here and Darlene, HR, everybody who does such a great job for our city. Thank you so much. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey to approve the agenda. Second, please. Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari? Yes. Have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next order of business is public input. We have no public input this morning. Moving on to our next is approval of minutes for October 11th, 2023.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the minutes for October 11th, 2023.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey for approval of the minutes. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Wood.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll
Mr.
call,
Mayor.
please.
Counselor,
Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, I would just like to make a notation that I'd like to commend Ms. Wanda Salazar, our director at the Senior Citizens, for sticking to her guns and making sure that that item passed through and that we didn't lose that funding. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Abstain.
Counselor Casey? Yes. I have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on is our presentations, not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes. Our presentation is by Main Street de Las Vegas, providing the fiscal year 2023-24 quarterly report. We have Mr. Parantu.
Thank you. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. I thought the meeting was at 5 o'clock, so I just found out 20 minutes ago and rushed over here, and I think we've got everything, yeah, we've got everything ready. So this is our first quarter report. Covers the time from July through September, and can you? So, first thing we're going to talk about is the transformation strategy, which is coordinate with the city to develop and implement projects and infrastructure projects. So we've been assisting with this project and working with the city manager and now the community development director on this project. And I think maybe the city manager knows more about what's happening with this at this time. I know that we're at a point where we're starting the second phase, and we're waiting to hear. I think you have an engineer and all that, right? So it's moving forward. So that'll be phase 2, which is the railroad section of the project, and then we'll finish up phase 1, which is basically the trees and the benches. So next slide. I don't know if there are questions at all.
On that project, I noticed that there's no striping.
Right, so I think the city manager can explain what happened with the repaving, I think.
Yes, sir, Mayor. So on the project, there was not including in the Great Blocks project that we RFP'd a contractor through, the paving portion was not part of their contract. So we did procure another contractor to do the paving portion. We have not accepted the paving that was installed there. It's unacceptable in some areas, so until they finish and fix those areas, it'll be restriped.
So that's moving forward. Each quarter, we do an economic development report where we go out and report about what's happening in the district. So, the Bridge Street, Plaza, Douglas, and Railroad. So in this report, there wasn't a lot of activity, but we're losing some businesses, and I think people know that. We've already lost Popular Dry Goods, a Blowing in the Wind, Stella's closed, although Stella's still doing activities, and we lost For the Love of Vinyl. We have one new business, Casa Musica, and then the only thing that's sold in the district, in our district, was the Wells Fargo building on East Lincoln. So that sold for, I think, $475,000. And that was the only sort of activity that happened. And so it was quiet except for the closing of businesses. We also have another new business opening on the south side or the east side of Popular Dry Goods. So to the left, the two-story building that has the 2 apartments at the top, they're doing sort of major construction on that now, and I'm going to talk to them probably this afternoon. And that's going to be a restaurant on the first floor and a bakery. So that's going forward, which I think is great. Next slide. We're doing a trash pickup on November 11th. I think we're gonna, yesterday we were walking the Riverwalk, so I think we're gonna do it on the Riverwalk instead of doing it in the Railroad District, because there's a lot of trash on the river right now. So that's coming up, and we'll send out notices on that. Next slide. So the mural project. There are 2 murals in process right now. The mural that you see is the one by Faith and Felix Galvin, and it's almost finished. We lost, because we were borrowing the scaffolding, we lost the scaffolding. They took it back. So we ended up having to buy scaffolding. So to get it finished, we bought the scaffolding, and we also hired her, somebody to help her. So when she's moving and stuff, we hired Mary Miller, another artist, to help her. And so that's almost finished. And when it's finished, we'll dedicate it. But right now, she's just finishing the faces and the trucks. So it'll be finished soon. And then the second mural, Paula Lopez's mural, is in process, and we're going to paint that on panels inside a building. We borrowed a building on Bridge Street to paint it. So tomorrow we do the base coat and the varnish on the wood for that mural. It's 6 pieces of 4x8 plywood. So then we do that, and Jamie Chavez is helping me with that. So we do that, and then we move it into the building. We bring them together, and then she paints the mural inside, so she can paint for the next 2 months and not be affected by weather, and then the whole mural just gets installed. So that's what's happening with that one. And she's already signed her contract and been paid half her fee, so she's ready to start on that. And Jamie Chavez is going to be her apprentice on that. So we're excited about having Jamie do that. And then the next 2 murals are in the
Mr.
spring.
Mayor.
So go ahead.
Before we move on, you want us to interrupt in between, or you want us to wait till the last minute?
Excuse me?
You want us to wait till questions, till your
No,
presentation?
no, you can ask at the point
Okay.
we're doing it.
So on that second mural, is a counselor in that ward being involved in this, and is he
David Romero,
okay?
yes, Councilman Romero has
And
seen
he's
it.
okay with the selection of what's going on there?
Yes, and he's seen the image, and he's the one that I've been speaking with, and we talked about the building, and we decided that it was easier to attach to that building, for her to paint inside and then attach the mural on that building. And I called Councilman Romero and told him that.
Okay. And Mr. City Manager, on number 1, on Legion, where are we on the lighting? We're supposed to get 2 lights, 1 on each side,
One on each top.
or on top.
Yes, sir. So we discussed that, and once they're finished with the project, we can install those quickly. I mean, it's not a big deal.
But you don't have a due date on that? It was due a year ago, but,
She was trying to finish by the end of October, and then we had the scaffolding situation. So now I hired her an assistant, we bought scaffolding, so she should be finished in the next couple of weeks.
Okay,
She was out there last weekend.
and do we have to do a sealer on that, or it's just?
We'll put a clear varnish, the varnish that we used on the murals that were on the Parachute Factory. We'll put that same varnish on it at the end to preserve it.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Next slide. We're working this Saturday at Trunk or Treat, and we'll have a table, we'll be giving out candy, and we'll be dressed in some kind of costumes. I have no idea where I'm going. So we're doing that. Next slide. We did the Housing Summit on September 13th. We had about 60 people at the summit. The mayor was there, we had Councilman Montoya, Councilman Romero, and it was really interesting and really fun. We all had, I think, a really great time. They're writing the report, and that report will come out in the beginning of November. So the report will be an assessment of what we have and what we need, and it'll also talk about each of the teams that day worked on ways that we could solve the housing problem. So that'll all be on the report too. And there were really interesting ideas in terms of how we can address the housing issue. And the Urban Land Institute did all that and put it all together. So that was great. It was all donated.
Mr. Mayor. On
Next.
that, Michael, and I'm not yelling, I just, so you can hear me. Just to clarify. Can you make sure that we get a copy to our Economic Development Director of that report? So
Absolutely.
that they can utilize it during the planning of the, what is it, 15-year plan or 30-year plan? So that
Absolutely.
they can incorporate it with that?
I think it'll be, so we've had drafts of assessments done before, but this will be sort of a definitive assessment, which will be good. It'll tell us what the numbers are in terms of housing. Next slide. Some of these are just events. So in the garden, we had every year, this is the third year we've done a Recovery Month event with Judge Flora Gallegos and the drug court. So we did that event. It was well attended. The mayor was there. And it just was an event that happened in the garden because the drug court has adopted the garden. So their community service people are doing beds in the garden. And so we work with them on a couple of events a year, and this was one. Next slide. We're submitting, or we're talking about, and we will talk with the city manager and with the community development director about what we need in terms of our service requests when we get the free services from New Mexico Main Street. So if we need a designer for a project or an architect for a project, or we need the real estate specialist to come back, we can get that. So we are talking about what we can do, and we don't have one planned yet. So we have 3 service requests we'll do this year, and we'll talk with the city about what they need, what you need, and what our district needs. And we'll submit requests on that. At some point, I could do a more formal presentation on what the services are, so everybody knows what's out there. Like, we can bring all sorts of specialists here if we need them. So I'll talk more about that at the next meeting. Next slide. We did our gala. We did our gala at the Highlands Ballroom. We had 180 people. We honored the people that you see up there with special awards. I realized something. It would be really difficult. So there were 3 galas in a row. There was our gala, the Hermits Peak Watershed Alliance, and then the Montezuma, the Hot Springs. And so we were trying to figure out a way to get city people there, city council and mayor. And it's really hard because if you buy tickets, you would have to buy tickets for everything. If you bought a table, you would have to buy a table for everything. So I don't know what the solution to that is, but it would have been great to have you there that night because it was just a really special night. So I don't know. I know there's the conflict issue, and then there's the issue of you can't afford to go to everything, but I'm not sure how that could be resolved. I would love to figure that out. So next year when we do it, you can come. We raised about $25,000, so it was a good event. Next slide. That's the end. I think.
Michael, just to ask you, have all your goals been met for the quarter?
Yes,
Okay,
in terms of where we are and yeah, in terms of schedule.
very well.
And this is based on the contract. So what I go through is the order of the contract also.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
On the small business that you were talking about, do you collaborate with the Small Business Development Center at Luna or in any way, or?
Oh, yeah, I work with them. I present at their conferences. Right now, so the issue with, I think we're going to end up with 7 businesses closing, which is a serious issue. We do have some things opening, but I think, so Elmo Baca used to be the head of New Mexico Main Street, and Elmo talked about us putting together some sort of economic restructuring committee that could deal with the issue of the businesses that are leaving and what happens with those spaces or how they're being marketed or sold, or, I know that, for instance, Paper Trail is trying to sell their whole business. Plaza Antiques is trying to sell their whole business. So it's like, how do we deal with that? And how do we deal with the loss of those businesses? Although we still seem to have some new businesses coming in to the district. I'll let you know about that. I would love for Elmo to help me with that if we're going to have a committee that talks about that.
So there's talk about, the city manager just attended a meeting earlier this week regarding economic development. So there's talk about doing an economic development summit for Las Vegas here in the next couple of months.
That would be great.
To be talking about all this stuff. And the other thing is that Sunny 505, our marketing company.
Right.
They're also aware of the trend in some of these businesses. So putting that on the marketing and
Yeah, it's funny, it's not funny, it's difficult because they're all trying to sell their businesses, and the businesses weren't losing money. It's literally about retirement. And so, but they're using different real estate agents, and when we tried to put a meeting together with the real estate agents about this, they said it was a conflict, they couldn't do it. And I was like, so I know that Raton has a website where they market their buildings and they market businesses for sale. I'm just not sure how we can do it if everybody's not sort of willing to talk together. And so we're trying to bring those people together to talk about how we could market the sale of these things. I think it's the first time it's happened like this in Las Vegas, where seven were closing at one time. Anyway, so I'll keep you abreast of what's happening with that. I mean, I do track all that in my reports, so the information's there.
any
Thank you.
questions?
Any more
Thank you,
questions?
Michael. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Now I don't have to come back at 5:30.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, our business item, discussion and approval of the Samaritan House contract. We have Mr. George Lyon and Mr. Lucas Marcus.
Mr. Manager, has our attorney read this contract and approved it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Marquez. Thank you, Mr. Lyon.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, Council.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Councils, we put forward a contract that was written, we copied off of the old one that was here prior and went ahead and modernized it, added a couple of extra things on there that we think needs to fit within the parameters of this contract. And I went ahead and sent you guys the red line copies and of course the affixed copies as well. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew what kind of changes we made with this document. And I went ahead and did some research on all this stuff just to make sure I have all the questions that you guys may have. I can have some answers for you guys.
Okay. Are there any discussions, any questions on this? I'll entertain a motion by the, yes,
I do
Mr.
have a
Montoya.
question. So last year I requested that before this contract came before us, that a copy of the insurance be attached to this contract, the liability insurance. And also, I had asked that a full disclosure be given to us. Last year, we waited till December the 22nd to approve this contract. And we were able to get a full disclosure of all the benefits that the nonprofit organization obtains from different sources. And actually, we even got a detailed salary schedule from all the employees employed by the 501c. And that should be part of the contract every year so that we can make a better, wiser decision. I do have a recommendation, Mr. Lyons, that, this contract was expired in April of this last year. And I would request that next year that you come meet with the city manager after April. Yeah, come meet with him and see what your requests will be, more or less, and see before we approve the budget in July. And that way he can relay that information to mayor and council. And when we're approving our budget in June, the end of June, we can do the appropriate numbers. I know you have an increase here of $10,000 I think we first started with 30,000, went up to 40, 50, and we're at 50, and now you're requesting 60,000? And we'd have to make budget adjustments, because this last year, we only approved $50,000. So just some recommendations, make this process a lot easier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Council, we did do some checking into the RFP process for the 60,000, and we aren't allowed to give 60,000 according to what the RFP says, so it would have to be something less than that. What we do have budgeted for in the Samaritan House account is $50,000. I did research on other communities of our size to see what the donations were to the Samaritan houses and homeless shelters throughout. And what I did find was it was between $20,000 and $50,000. So we are on the higher end of donations, which is good for the city of Las Vegas. We do look good at doing that. I looked at other communities just to see what it costs to feed somebody for one day, and it came out to about $18 to $20. And this is a Santa Fe homeless shelter. I believe it's called Pete's Place. The Interfaith Community Shelter is what it is. So I kind of based ourselves off of that, and I went further and found more detailed areas. They're a little bit more pricier, but they're in bigger cities. So just to reaffirm you guys that we are on the higher end of the donation scale.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mator?
Mr. Lyons, do you have off top of your head the figures of how many citizens you serve and how many county residents you serve?
Well, we changed policy so that we'll change that number, and how we treat people that are from San Miguel County versus out. I don't have specifics about whether they're from the county or somewhere else. We don't have that yet.
Okay. And hopefully I'm not out of line, have you asked the county for this year's contributions yet?
No, sir, we've tried to communicate with them, and we'll continue to do that. We are going to approach them.
And what are you approaching for?
Probably duplicate of what you offer.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
If there's,
Mayor, I move that we approve the Samaritan House contract.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey.
question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. The contract was modified by your office, and there was stuff that was added in and not taken out that we need to look at. It's not anything major, but it's enough to, like, the fee that he has in the contract that you're about to approve is $40,000. And like, we couldn't do it for that. And then he added in, or what was added in was the day services program. That's a whole different program. We provided contracts for both separately for your convenience. I guess they only got one of them, or only had time to look at one, which is fine, the main one. But there's no way that we could do it for the $40,000. That's less than the year before. And it's, the cost of food is just skyrocketed.
So you proposed 50, you came back to us and the city's told you we can't, we're only going to give you 40, is that my understanding?
Mayor, Council, no, that's incorrect. The contract says 50,000.
You have a contract with 50 right there?
Yes, sir. It says right there,
Okay.
50,000.
Okay, so my mistake. So it's 50,000. It's 10,000 less than we asked. And I understand that you can't do that because of the bid process, RFP requirement. So I don't know how the solution, what the solution is, but just so you know, it costs us about $30. We did the math on it. So you're paying $30 per person per day. And that's 2 meals, bunk, clothing, shoes, sanitation, showers, laundry, $30 a day. So it's really economical. We checked it with our accountant, compared it to other units. And so we're really a little concerned with that. And then we were hoping that in the very near future, at your request, Mr. Mayor, that we look at the day program, because the day program is a different beast altogether. It involves many other vendors or not vendors, but providers in town that will be there and do their thing with the guests that happen to use the services during the day.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mator?
You know, just, I think that we ought to look at other things too, and I think the city of Las Vegas should be providing the services for food and services. not salaries, not electricity, not telephone bill, not magazine, prescriptions and stuff like that. You have a budget that you got abide by?
Yes, sir.
Yearly?
You influence it about 10%.
And we have a budget that we got to abide by. And that's why I emphasize that you should come in April, and meet with the city manager, and let him know your requests
Sure.
at that time so that we can budget accordingly. But this is what we have budgeted up for this year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey, second.
Is that the 50,000, Madam Casey?
Yes.
There's still some more issues in the contract, sir.
Oh, okay. So,
There's a couple of provisions that we made to accommodate the public. One of them was have Zoom programs or open Zoom for the public. It didn't last and nobody participated in it. So we struck it from the contract. The other thing, which is a little bit of embarrassing, and I hope I don't offend you, and if I do, I apologize immediately, is that the city's a really slow pay. It takes us maybe 60 days to get paid. And so we were asking in the initial contract that we get the first disbursement upfront immediately, and that'll keep us going from there. We are ready and prepared to hire staff. We have to hire staff. It wasn't like it was in the past where we hired merely people to watch the individuals. We have to hire professional social workers, 2 of them, at a minimum, and they actually are going to evaluate for the purpose of getting them off the street on a more permanent basis. And so anyone that goes through the door and receives services, thankfully through your donations, we're not just going to give them a meal and a place to sleep. We're going to see what's going on and see if we can get them in another direction, and that takes the professional services. And so that's why you're seeing an incremental increase. When we did it last year, I should mention, or the year prior that I came, I was rather surprised because by the end of the contract with the city, 60% of the people receiving services were not shelter people, but rather people from the community, needing stuff like driver's license, birth certificates that they either did not have the money because they were not employed and they couldn't get employed without that. They also needed services like P&M referral to the Good Neighbor program or other services. And so by the end of that year, we saw it initially, of course, handle most or all of the shelter guests, but then it moved to the city, to people from your community that had needs like that. So it was carefully managed money. It wasn't just wasted and set aside.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Montoya?
You know, Mr. Lyons, how many referrals have you given to your people, to the city of Las Vegas, to come and work for us?
To come and work for you?
Yeah.
We don't.
You don't do referrals? You don't do services?
No, that's a specialty item. So we would send them to the Workforce Commission because the workforce has on-the-job training programs and a TJT program, which we tap into.
Okay, well, we have like about 39, 40 vacancies that people can come and work for us.
Very good.
The other thing is, you know, it kind of bothers me sometimes that, you know, here we are trying to help you out and we're supporting, you know, I mean, I don't even want to support your salaries, but we're still supporting them at $20 an hour. Yet our city employees are getting $12 and $14 an hour.
Actually, so there's no one that gets $20 an hour in our employee.
Well,
They get $12 an hour.
aren't those the numbers that you put on here on your contract?
That probably accounts for multiple amount of people, unless it's a social worker, a licensed social worker in the state of, and they get the low end of the social work pay.
Mm-hmm.
We get very little pay,
Okay.
very, very little pay.
So it's average of what, 12 hours
It's minimum wage.
minimum? Okay. My misunderstanding then.
Yeah, it's okay, sir.
I thought,
Yeah, no, that's really dedicated. We even had to cut their days down to 3 days, and we kept it at minimum wage, and they still stayed aboard. They're dedicated to the community.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council, before we move forward, I want to make sure I let you guys know the reason why the prepayment was struck from the contract. We can't pay anybody for services that haven't been rendered. So I removed that from the contract. So he will have to wait to get payment before we pay him anything.
It should be like a 30-day payment, right?
It's a minimum of 30 days. They should
Yes.
get it within 30 days. But they should have money to be able to function as of today. I mean, they should already they should have money to cover themselves. They shouldn't be dependent upon us to give them the money to function.
And we're not, sir. Again, the city's generous offer to us is 10% of our total budget at the most. And so we do have the opportunity to run, but with the slow pay, it gets complicated because it is hitting 45, 60 days sometimes in some of the payments. And so we also integrate it, if you can't pay the ahead of time, that you, like any other business, pay a 10% penalty for late payment over 30 days. That's the other thing that we had in there.
That also has been struck, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the pleasure of the council?
There's a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor by Ms. Casey. I need a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Casey, a second by Counselor Olivari. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Thank you, Mr. Marcus.
And Mayor and Council, we'll work closely with Mr. Lyon on when he invoices us to make sure that that payment is expedited as soon as possible.
I guess the last thing I want to do is seem arrogant to any of you on the board here, but there was fundamental changes throughout the contract that were made that I was given yesterday. And a scan of those changes included adding the day services program into that contract without additional fees, but actually 10,000 less. We can't do that. There's no way we can do the day services program in addition. There was also an expansion of the hours and an extension of the amount of days. Considerable modifications in the design and your expectations that I was hoping that that's what would be what we were going to be talking about, because we want to get moving on this. We don't want to complicate and put any barriers in front of it, but we simply can't afford to run a day services program with the same fee that we use completely to run the shelter.
And that was one of the reasons why the problem last year was that you had some money that was left over.
Yes, sir.
And you asked if it could be used for day services. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to add this into a contract. It's not a whole other program. We're not going to fund a whole other program. But if you need to use those monies for day services, for drop in a meal or shower or whatever, during that time, that money could be used for that as well.
Yes, sir, but remember that when the contract ended last year, the shelter closed down too, so we didn't have those salary costs. So now what the city's asking us to do is, in addition to continuing to have salary costs related, is add that program in addition without any repercussions. So that means employees have to stay longer, have to come in, from 10 to 12, 5 days a week. It operates 3 days a week now. And it was designed to be a resource day or a follow-up for people that didn't utilize the shelter services.
So what you're saying is even if we pass this, it's highly unlikely you'll sign it?
Well, I can't say that, sir. We really appreciate the money, and we want to be as solvent and get things done. We need to get the social workers aboard, sir. Without getting them aboard, we're just going to become like another shelter, and we just don't want to do that. We want to do exceptional work. We want to get them off the street. I don't know if you noticed, there was one couple in the city of Las Vegas that was panhandling. We started an aggressive campaign last year. We tried to get them off the street, but they wanted to go to Alaska. We almost got them the tickets, but they were just trying to stall and panhandle. So we do much more than just provide the emergency shelter services. And if you want me to limit it strictly to the emergency shelter service, then by default, the day center services wouldn't be included.
Well, could you do me a favor and write your concerns down, share them with us, and if we have to come back and amend something, then we'll move forward that way.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to
Yeah.
adjourn.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mator?
I was just going to ask the question, where did that request come from? But I think it was pretty well answered. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. Second?
Second, Mr.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.